Imagine a workplace where every employee feels valued, engaged, and inspired. Welcome to Incredible Workplaces, where exceptional work cultures are recognized and celebrated. Incredible Workplaces is dedicated to evaluating and certifying organizations that prioritize employee well-being, engagement, and inclusivity. Our assessments are grounded in the PULSE framework, promoting values and beliefs, unified communication, leadership development, supportive environment, and environment for innovation and adaptability. We offer 2 certification levels: Gold, focusing on self-evaluation, and Platinum, which includes comprehensive employee feedback for a holistic view of your workplace culture. Achieving certification enhances your employer brand, attracts top talent, and fosters a culture of continuous improvement. Beyond certification, we provide access to exclusive events, best practices, and a community committed to workplace excellence. Our certification programs are competitively priced to provide value for organizations of all sizes. Join the ranks of organizations committed to excellence. Visit IncredibleWorkplaces.com to start your certification journey today.
Super excited that we are Incredible Workplaces certified.
We are feeling pride to be certified as Incredible Workplace Organization.
We are very happy to be certified from Incredible Workplace.
Feeling proud to be recognized as Incredible Workplace Certified Organization.
Let's create workplaces incredible with Incredible Workplaces. Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Culture Connect by Incredible Workplaces. And today we are in our episode 12, where we bring global leaders from all over the world talking about culture, their experiences, their journey, and what they think a good work culture looks like. But as I always say, a culture is not one thing, but it's a combination of multiple things. So we always try to touch upon various aspects of those work culture elements. Today, I'm very excited to have Scott with us. Scott is the founder of OLO and based out of Virginia, US, if I'm pronouncing it right, Scott. And he's helping the organization to mature their product development practices. So first of all, Scott, welcome to our Culture Connect episode.
Govind, it's an honor, and thank you for having me.
Great. So for our audience, so I worked with Scott and a great leader, and we worked together and been working together to build organizations that people can feel proud about. It's good to have you, Scott, back, and maybe there are a lot of conversation that we can have from old times as well.
But I know we have a lot to talk about.
Just to make sure that our audience, connects well with you, I just kind of told them about what you are doing right now, but maybe who you are in as a person professionally, what you believe in. Would you like to share something with our audience?
Sure. From a culture perspective, I think one of the really interesting parts of my background is I studied history and then economics, and so after studying economics, I really started to think about culture as a system that has incentives, just like economies have incentives, and you'll see different people behave differently in those systems. And so then as I became a leader in organizations, really thinking about that system, like what do I want the system to, how do I want it to inform the decisions that individuals make every day? That's probably one of the more interesting things about my perspective, is that it's rooted in thinking about the humans. Of course, I shouldn't say of course, but I've led a lot of technology teams, product, engineering, design, built a lot of SaaS products throughout my career. And so you would think that I would come from a technology background and be really focused on the technology, but I'm really much more interested in the humans that we build for and the humans that we build with. And then how do I create value out of the intersection of the two? That's a big part of how I think and how I try to lead. So
That's awesome. Thank you, Scott. And you know what? One thing that I always tell to everyone that I speak with, because we have a lot of customers, client, and we are into, of course, work culture. So as part of the one of the services that we have, Scott, is that most of the time I'm in touch with the CEOs and the CHROs of the organization talking about culture. And one thing that I always tell them is that never think that culture is something that HR need to drive in the organization. Maybe
no.
HR could be a facilitator of driving the culture, but end of the day, it is the business leaders and each and every employee in the organization that drives the culture of the organization. And that is why precisely, Scott, I think like the individual like you who has been working as technology leaders throughout your life, as I said, I worked with you, a great leader, both in technology and somebody who really cares for the culture and the people. It really becomes very important to have your perspective. Although many of our audience are from HR and many are from non-HR background as well, but it's very important to know that even HR should not think that we are the one who's supposed to drive the culture of the organization. We can't do anything unless we have the support of the top leadership, the CXOs, and also the employees of the organization. And that is why this conversation is going to be very, very interesting. To my audience, you already seen some people are welcoming you on the session here. So on behalf of our audience, welcome
Yes.
to our Culture Connect show. But at the same time, to my audience, in case you have any questions that you want to ask Scott, please feel free to ask. I know he's the one who's going to answer you unfiltered. So please ask those questions, and I'll try my level best to take as many as questions I can take in the limited time that we have. So Scott, let's go into the conversation that we have today. And I love the topic that we have: fail fast and learn faster. And I think I've seen you, practicing it in when I was working with you together. But let me ask you, and I think from there, before our last assignment and now in your current assignment, how do you see this fail fast in action nowadays? So give some context around
Yeah.
that.
Well, it's funny. I mean, and of course, the fail fast, concept comes out of Facebook, it's actually interesting. I wrote a post on this on LinkedIn probably a couple years back, but the glorification of failure is a mistake. We don't want failure. That's not what we're looking for. If you think about, what an incredible waste of resources it would be if we just tried to fail all the time. Like that does not move your business forward. But the second part, the learn faster. If we fail, the only kind of, and I think I said this in my piece, the only kind of failure that is unacceptable is failure without learning. And so the learning is really the key piece. And so how do you, as a culture, really emphasize the learning, not the failure? Now, because the emphasis is on learning, there's things that you're going to get wrong. You have hypotheses, you have beliefs, you have, and inside any organization, we know there's a lot of competing beliefs that are moving around that organization, both about internal, what's good for the inside the company, and what's good externally for customers and the company's position in the market. The key is not to fail. The key is to learn. And once you shift the focus from failing to learning, and then make sure that everyone knows that failure, again, in pursuit of learning, is the thing you should glorify, right? That's what you're after. Because the true comparative advantage that a company can gain is by knowing themselves and the market better than the competition. If you can do that, you can outpace those competitors and build that comparative advantage that then drives business results. Failure itself is not good. Failure is waste. But it's not waste if it gives you that learning, that insight. Insight is where you can get innovation. You can, once you understand your users, your customers. I mean, I come from a product perspective, so I tend to think about user behavior. But if you think about customers, why do they buy? If I understand their psychology better than my competitors, I can sell and build better things to those customers. And so, I always try to shift the conversation away from failure and towards learning. But the other part of learning that's really important, and I kind of buried it here, but is the return on investment. So how do you learn in the cheapest possible way? So this is where the fail fast piece can come in. It's totally okay for our hypotheses to be wrong. We should be then turning those hypotheses into tests, and those tests should be the cheapest possible tests that give us a result that moves our knowledge forward and then drives results. So fail fast has always been a painful one, because I'm like, fail fast and break things came out of Facebook, and I was like, don't break things, like don't break trust, don't be unreliable. It's not okay. Don't be cavalier with people's data. Like, that's not okay, right? So that was the wrong mantra, I believe, for the internet. And unfortunately, it became so glorified that now people are talking about how do you create a culture that embraces failure. I don't want to embrace failure. I want to embrace winning. But I'm not trying to win inside the company. I'm trying to win outside the company, in the market, create value together with people that I really respect and enjoy working with. So sorry, that was a long answer to your question, but I'm pretty passionate about this one.
No, I keep doing that more. I think the one thing that I got from that is that many a times when we say it's okay to fail, I think we miss the second part of that. That it's not actually okay to fail, but it is okay to fail as long as you are learning from it. And so you said don't glorify the failure. I think that's the key, But if you have to do anything, just learn from that. And you said if you want, then fail faster. As opposed to that. Can I share one story with you, Scott? A very recent from the Incredible Workplaces, and I think you will understand it more because you are from a technology background. So when we started Incredible Workplaces, we were thinking of our website, right? How do we build our website? And we started building our website on a platform called WordPress, and I think you know that more than me.
I know WordPress well. Yeah.
And I'm not a tech guy myself, but I think I got some advice. Okay, let's do it on WordPress, and we started that. Honestly speaking, I felt that it was actually giving a lot of pain to me and my team. Even those small changes and a lot of things around that, I don't want to go into detail, was actually very painful. Now, by the time, Scott, I realized, I would say, is on me. I realized that I think we are on the wrong path of continuing ourselves on this on this platform. It was, I would say, a little late. But I knew that if I decide to move to any other platform now, it's gonna be more painful for me and my team. But I was looking at it in the way that if I don't do it now, and if I do it like after 6 months, it's gonna be more painful than what it is today. So one day then I spoke with my team and said, guys, this is my thought that I think we should move from WordPress to a completely different platform. So we are now using Wix.com, Wix.com.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody knew what I'm talking about. And everybody knew the amount of time it's going to take to move from one to another one. And then also taking a hit on your SEO and all that stuff that's going to happen around it. But as a team, we took a decision that I don't think it's a good, we learned that it's not a good one, that we are going to continue with WordPress going to be a problem. I don't know whether WordPress is great or Wix is good, but it was not working for us. So we moved in a span of, we targeted like 3 to 4 weeks. In 3 weeks, we built a complete different website on Wix.com, moved it completely. And thanks to my team, and I'm sure they must be listening this particular episode as well. I think it's a great example of learning faster and moving ahead. I'm so happy that we did it, Scott. I think the look and the feel, the smoothness, and most importantly, the ease to make changes, because we have to keep making changes, right? In our website is so great. So again, going back to your story that, so now you're learning that we don't have to glorify failure. I'm not saying that we did a great job of going to WordPress in the first place. But what I'm saying is we learned it and then we moved it into actions there. So Scott, let me ask you, because my audience loves a lot of stories. So any occasion, any story where you want to tell us that a failure led to innovation, anything that comes to your mind, any such story?
One of my favorite stories is a product related story. And the company in question is a furniture maker, and they offer their furniture online. They were targeting millennials, younger, 20 something at the time. And the problem that they were running into is a lot of people were, and these are custom sofas. So you can pick your fabric, your sizes, you could customize all kinds of elements. And it seemed to be working really well in terms of a lot of traffic was coming. A lot of people were spending a considerable amount of time customizing these sofas, but then they weren't checking out, they weren't purchasing. And the company didn't know why. And the assumption was that it has to be something about the offer, right? That that the price was too high, or they didn't have the right kinds of materials, or so they tried a lot of things to try to enhance the offering so that people would convert and complete the purchase. But these were very expensive things to do. You can imagine what changing the materials and lowering the prices, right, obviously ate into margins. So these were very expensive experiments that they did to try to increase conversion, and conversion actually didn't move at all. So what was really interesting is they wound up bringing in some outside help to look at this. And what they did the thing that I always have to tell founders to do: talk to your customers, understand their language and their mental model. That's how you build great products. You can't do it if you don't know them. And so talking to the customers and figuring out why they abandoned their shopping cart was almost all about they didn't know what to do with the sofa they already had. So they were buying a new sofa, which meant they had a sofa that they need to get rid of. And especially in Chicago, this was mostly a lot of local in the Chicago area, like that was a daunting task. Like, how do I get rid of the sofa? So the key to unlocking conversion really was about offering sofa removal upon delivery. If you could do that, and you could charge more for it. And so they were able to increase their margins. They're able to increase conversion rate just by taking that friction. And this is a big part of their theory, is like, so oftentimes we think too much about fuel and we don't think enough about friction. And when you get into the buyer's minds, they have things on their mind, concerns, objections, and so forth. So however you can get ahead of those gives you, again, a comparative advantage. And so the failure here, of course, was all the things that they tried previously, right? And they're all the things that you would expect any, C-suite to talk about. Like, maybe we should do this and we should do that. And I'm sure that there was a lot of certainty in that room. You know how executives talk. They talk like they have the answer, right? Like, and so one of the things that I try to do is shift the conversation to, we have a hypothesis. It's okay. There's nothing wrong. I'm not degrading your insight here, but I'm trying to point out that we don't know the answer. We have a theory, and now we get to go test it. And if you can start to introduce that language and that humility as a leader, I think you set an example for your peers as a leader, and then for the organization to say, it's okay, call me out when I'm making an assumption. Let's make sure that we're clear in our thinking, because that's how we're going to do better learning. And again, failure isn't failure. It's learning. It's advancing us towards where we really need to go. But it's really important to not say, oh, it failed, and then walk away and be like, I don't know. Like, I guess our conversion rate is going to stay at 20%. That's not the right answer. So that's one of my favorite product examples.
Yeah, that's a great one. And I think it's a reminder for many of us, whether it is your external customer or internal customer, it's important to have conversations, and people who are dealing with customers, especially the C-suites. I think it's important for us to talk to our customer and understand that what are their challenges and what are they looking for. And for even the HR folks who are on this call, our internal customers are our business leaders and employees, and many times we feel that maybe they will like this thing, but they might not like. So we need to talk to them. What engages them, right? What excites them? And from the work of Daniel Kahneman and some other economists and psychologists, we know that fear is a much bigger motivator, and leaders are much less likely to share their fears, but it's a much bigger motivator of behavior than aspiration and goals. And so that's actually a really great insight that I gained along the way. And so I spend a lot of time with leaders trying to understand their fears, because it's just so important to know, because it'll color so much of how they respond to your ideas, how they work with you, initiatives they're willing to go in on, ones that they're not. It really can be a clarifier. So just offer that. And one thing about building a culture where failure is okay, Scott, is about creating an environment or a psychological safety for the employees that they can actually fail. And I think you would agree, but I personally believe that a lot in building this psychological safety lies in the hand of the leaders of the organization. And I'm talking about from the CEO to the other leaders in the organization, because if we are not creating that psychological safety and not giving signals to our people that it is okay to fail, but again, to your point, not to glorify the failure, but to learn from it,
Yeah.
I think it will be a problem. So what can be done? And I've seen a lot of organizations where so basically it's like, hey, we would like to see successes. We don't want to see failure. So there are those culture as well, right? What's your advice
Right.
to organizations that are actually working on building the culture where failure is okay as long as you're learning? So how can leaders build that psychological safety around it? So what would be your advice? I know that you have done it in the past. What will be your advice to the leaders here in this call?
Yeah, and I for leaders, I mean, my recommendation is that it's really important to do it on two levels. One is to model it when you're in larger conversations, like all hands meetings and those types of things, or if you're sending out messages, to everyone, you have an opportunity to model intellectual humility. You have an opportunity to tell stories of your own personal failure and what you learned. So there's those opportunities, and then there's the private moments. And I particularly love the private moments. And Govind, you know this about me, but those opportunities to be truly curious, opportunities to meet with people at all levels of the organization and learn from them. What does the world look like from where you're sitting? How can I help you? But I think creating that space where it's like, yeah, I'm interested in good ideas no matter where they come from. I certainly don't think that I have all the best ideas, and so really encouraging that kind of openness, using language like the scientific language that I talked about, like having a hypothesis or an assumption is great. And if we use that language, it really defangs and helps. One of the things that I think organizations get wrong is and individuals get wrong is they personalize their ideas. If you select my idea, that means I did good. This is where I adopted a mantra that I put out on LinkedIn every once in a while, just as a reminder to everyone and to myself. I would rather get it right than be right. And I wish all organizations would that, instead of, fail fast and break things, that is the mantra they would put on the wall. Our shared goal is to get it right, is to move us towards our goals as a collective, and to create the changes in the market that we're hoping to create. And then, of course, be valued for that. If you think of it that way, then the psychological safety is necessary to create that movement and the collective power of our collective wisdom. It doesn't mean it's a democracy, right? I want to be careful. It's not bottoms up. The people at the top are responsible for the business results, and with accountability comes authority. But again, take good ideas anywhere they come from. And the people oftentimes that are on the front lines or working directly with folks, whether they're HR professionals working with employees or salespeople working with prospects, they do have access to information that those of you at the top don't have. They're having conversations you're not having. And so making them partners in the mission can be a really powerful way to move an organization towards its goals.
Yeah, and I think I totally agree with you. And I think your thoughts are creating a lot of buzz on in the audience right now. So I'll take a couple of them very quickly. Sanjay wanted to know who is primarily responsible for creating a psychological safety in the organization. I think you kind of answered, but would you like to put your 2 cents on that quickly?
I actually think it's a collective responsibility. And I mean, at 3-pillar where we were, intrinsic integrity was really important to us. And there were a number of times where I said things that I shouldn't have. And I was reminded by my peer leaders, hey, Scott, that's not really embodying one of our values. And so I think it's a shared responsibility. We want to create a workplace where people are not their ideas. Ideas are separate, and we should be ruthless about ideas and very supportive of the people, right? That cannot be a single person's responsibility ever. It's certainly a tone that gets set from the top, but whether or not you work in a psychologically safe place is every bit as much about your peer teammates and the people that you're working directly with every day, and the way that they treat your ideas, your thoughts, whether or not they're curious about what you're thinking is going to be useful or helpful in terms of what you're trying to accomplish. So I would definitely, it would be horrible if your organization relies on one person to generate psychological safety, because it really is about the space in between the humans. But certainly the tone should be set at the top. That's going to help a lot.
Awesome. And I'll take one from Vibha. So basically, her question is very interesting, because there are a lot of organizations where they want to build that kind of culture, but not all the leaders are same. So her question is more like, if the leader who's personally uncomfortable with failure, right? And there are many that I know, at least in my career, but now there's the pressure. Of course, you said everybody's responsible, right? There's the pressure from organization that you have to build that psychological safety, and you have to encourage your people to experiment and risk. What will be your advice, I don't know, to the leader who's like that, right? What would you say?
I mean, I think I think the theme is, failure itself is not the goal, that learning is the goal. So that's obviously a key piece. But then also, I think then once you've done one of these experiments and you've gained an insight, glorify the insight and connect it back to, so if we take like the sofa company, right, that I talked about, wow, what an unbelievable insight that they have gained about their customers, right? And again, several of their competitors may not know how important being able to get rid of existing furniture to bring in new furniture is to the purchase. So that you can connect those dots and glorify that insight and show the business benefits of that insight. And the way you talk about the failures becomes really important at that point, right? Because the things that you tried that maybe hurt business results for a quarter, because you tried discounting the sofas to see if that would move the conversion rate, or you tried these things that were very expensive, but it's okay because you got to the point where now we have a much brighter future and a much brighter present. So I think it's about going that full cycle, and being able to help people understand how that failure can lead to insight, leads to business results. If you fail to get the insight, again, it was waste. If you fail to monetize the insight, it was also waste. So you want to make sure that we're learning in order to advance on our goals. And I think that's one way that you can align as a junior employee with leaders. Leaders are always worried that the junior employees are not thinking about the health of the company or growth or the things that they're. So anytime you can reconnect your activities to the things they care about, you have a real opportunity to bolster trust. And trust is one of the keys to psychological safety. So I know the question was about leaders, but I'm much more interested in helping people who are working with leaders better work with them, show the alignment. Show that you care about the things they care about, and then they'll be much more receptive to everything else you have to say.
Awesome. And I'll take one. This is a little longer one from Mayank, and he needs your perspective on that. So I think this is what he wanted to say. So he said, I believe that any organization culture should be such that it creates a safe space to fail. Well, so that's, totally all of us are on the same page. But often we see that the failure is taken as sidelining a team or a person. So basically using it as a tool to, sideline a particular person. But the same person who we are sidelining knows how that particular thing could have been fixed. So what's your thoughts around that? So he wanted to know this.
Yeah, it sort of depends on the nature of the failure. But I think one of the things that can really inoculate you from the personal damage or reputational damage of failure, because I think that's what we're talking about here, is to, one, on the way in, try to use language like, this is my bet, this is what I think will happen, and use that language so that, again, the idea is a hypothesis, not a firmly held conviction. Because if you have a firmly held conviction that is wrong, then you may not be the best partner for me to get to where I want to go, right? If you just have bad judgment, right? So not all failures are the same. There are failures that are the result of bad judgment. Like your worldview is not compatible with the worldview of our customers. So you're not able to find those insights easily. I've seen people who are weak on discernment, understanding the relative cost of different ideas, and instead of betting on the faster way to learn, they bet on the really expensive path because they think, oh, if I don't have all the bells and whistles, that some of those things are just not good instincts. And so the nature of the failure, the cost of the failure definitely matters to your reputation. But I believe that if you can be intellectually humble before you pursue an idea, then you create some space between you and the idea. I don't know if the idea is good. I believe it's good. I wouldn't have brought it up if I didn't think it was good, but I don't know. And I'm humble enough to be able to say, so then that creates space for others to weigh in and say, okay, well, is that the right bet to make? It is a bet. You are using company resources to try something. You need the support of others as you do that. And so how you cultivate that support and that collaboration early creates then the opportunity to fail, learn, and not have the reputational damage of the failure stick to you. The fact is I was advancing our mission. So then the failure isn't so bad. If I'm trying to think of a different kind of failure, here I can give another type of failure. And this is one that's near and dear to both of us. I had a manager that was working for me at 3Pillar. And he had, he was presented to me as someone who was an up and coming star, unbelievable, really amazing, all this stuff, and had led one team. Some things had gone wrong with the client. It didn't go very well. Another team was formed to serve a different client. He took over that team, and things kind of fell apart in a way that I was scratching my head. I was like, what is happening here? So we brought in additional support. I met with him. I met with the people on the team. And what I saw was a pattern of someone who believed that he was above the team in a way that the team didn't feel supported. They didn't feel like he was present. The client didn't feel supported. And because that was like the third or fourth time that I'd heard stories like this, that's just bad judgment. That's just bad judgment. And so the best thing that I could do for him was, I actually had to fly to the country where he lived and sit down and have lunch with him and let him know that he can no longer work at 3Pillar, and that I hoped that he would learn from this experience, that this would make this meaningful. But these are the lessons that I wanted him to take away. And I believe that it was the highest service thing for me to do, unfortunately, to fire him. I didn't want to fire him. It was very disruptive, but it was the right thing to do for him and for us. And a real opportunity for him to shift the way he thinks about team and thinks about himself in relationship to team and the people who work for him. So I did my best to deliver those messages. I'm still connected with him. So hopefully that's a good sign, but yeah.
Yeah, it is. Sure. I think this, so you actually, so the story that you just mentioned has triggered a question in my mind, is about when we see a failure, right? There is a mechanism to give feedback also to our team member, and it's very important. How do you give that feedback to your team member? Any advice, anything that you wanted to share? Because many times I've seen that the way the feedback is given or not given at all also lead to a problem where people are not able to learn from the mistakes they have made. What is your opinion on the importance of feedback in creating that psychological safety, and also to the concept of fail fast and learn faster? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think feedback is absolutely critical. So it's a great thing for you to highlight. And the way you give feedback. So I actually, my philosophy on feedback, I've been pretty public about. I believe you have to earn the right to give criticism. And the way you earn it is you make sure you convey that you want this person to be successful. If that person believes that you want them to be successful, the way they hear your feedback will be totally different. And so I certainly, especially with any of my, the people that I work with directly, whether they're my peer leaders or people who work for me, I make sure that they understand, and it's true. I want them to succeed. I mean, I really, I genuinely want them to succeed. All of them, even my peers, which I think sort of disarms and surprises some of my peer leaders, because at my level, a lot of times things can get very competitive, especially in the C-suite. It gets incredibly competitive, which is silly because, of course, we're all on the same team, aren't we? but a lot of times it doesn't work that way. But coming back to feedback, if you can earn the right to give feedback, and or if I'm giving feedback to somebody that I don't know really well and I haven't had that opportunity, a lot of times I'll make sure that they understand, like, hey, giving this feedback is actually uncomfortable for me. I'm doing this because I want you to succeed. And so you do have an opportunity to make sure that they understand that. And then how you deliver the feedback with curiosity, with empathy, you're focused on how we can improve. It's not about berating them for what happened the other day. It's about how do we move forward and be better from this. At the end of the day, we should all be wanting to get better as individuals and collectively. And so it's really a collaboration on how do we improve. If you had good questions here for feedback is like, okay, that didn't work out. Is there anything you would have done differently? And now you're doing this is more of an opportunity for them to gain wisdom from this experience. The shame and feeling bad about the failure is it's just a waste. It's not really productive. So if you can turn that into energy of like, how can I do better next time? What variables or collaborations or questions or steps would I have taken differently that might have avoided that or improved the result? Those are great opportunities, great questions to combine with your feedback then of like, here's what I saw. I don't know the answer, but I believe that if you had done this and this first, this may not have happened. So something for you to think about. Like I'm not berating, criticizing, or being, pretending like, oh, I have all the answers. I'm trying to give them food for thought for their own growth so that they're getting better.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you know what? I think about this feedback, I still feel that every leader or manager need to continuously, learn the way they give feedbacks. If I talk about myself, I feel that I'm still learning. One, because you have to deal with different generations. So the way you give them feedback, the way you used to give feedback is changing a lot. So it's a continuous process. But I think the most important thing is that you value the giving feedback to your team member and the impact it can create. And I love that what you just said, that I think people need to earn that a leader can comfortably give a feedback to you. It's one of the very biggest fear of mine, Scott. Like when I think of giving feedback to somebody, I was like, if I give a feedback with the best of my ability and all the things that I can take in mind while giving feedback, and also keep all the advice Scott has given to me to give the feedback, still, there are chances that the other person might not take it in a positive way. So I think that's Absolutely. A very, very key that it's not that, why, like most of the time you hear team members saying that, hey, why don't you give us the feedback? Well, might be because the manager did not feel comfortable and they felt that you might feel offensive or you might become defensive about what that person is trying to say, right? So I think that's a great point. But yeah, it's a continuous process that every leader need to kind of tweak because of the generations that are also coming from time to time. I know that we are reaching very. Go ahead.
Well, Govind, if I can just make one point on that one, I think it's so important because you and I have had really good conversations about like SMART goals and other related topics, right? And one of the things that, I think it's certainly good for leaders to be thoughtful about how to give feedback and how to do that. I also think the authenticity is so important. It has to come from a human place. And sometimes with the frameworks and all the things that you were just mentioning that you have to keep in mind, we can get overly scripted or rigid or, structured. And all of that is fine if it helps you, but it needs to help you find your authenticity. If you're not able to deliver some kind of, this is two humans talking. And they both have feelings and fears and all those things. And so when you really humanize it, I think then you have a better chance of landing that, and having that conversation too, that says, hey, I can see you're getting really defensive and worked up. I totally understand. I get defensive and worked up when I feel like my work is being criticized. It's okay. So you can create the space for them to be okay, to be like, yeah, but I just want you to reflect on what we've talked about and see if you come up with some, again, it's not just about me saying my piece. It's about me helping them on their journey. And again, if you keep that frame, I think it doesn't take away the feelings of the other person, but it could help you navigate it better.
Yeah. And I think maybe the point is that we should let them feel that we are here to help and not necessarily criticize them, is the key that if any leader can keep in mind, that might help. As you can see, we have a lot of comments, a lot of questions. I'm so sorry to all the audience. I know that I can't take all your questions. We have literally 5 minutes left to close this conversation, but I would not let Scott go without asking this question. So Scott, I know that you're helping. Don't worry, it's going to be an easy one. So I know that you're helping organizations in maturing their product development, right, across the world. So, and in technology, I'm not a technology guy, but in technology, I think it's something that has touched everybody, right? Nobody's right now today is not touched by technology. Every business is not touched, right? But my thinking is, or my read is that the technology is changing so fast that I have ever seen in the past. So fast. Today it is this, tomorrow is that, right? Now you are from technology, right? I think more than me, you feel all that stuff. What's your opinion? Like, one is that you have to keep a pace, right? You can't just be behind. You have to keep the pace with the change in the technology. At the same time, you have to have a thoughtful reflection of things that you're doing. Do you get that time? Or maybe your clients when you're working with, do they even get the time? Okay, let us reflect what we did wrong. Well, you don't have time to think about that because there's something new that you need to work on. So forget about what you have done. Do you still have time? And maybe any story with your client that you want to share that, or maybe anything you want to share about the technology stuff going on right now, because you are in the US and most of the technology stuff that happens in US earlier than any part of the world.
And China. don't shortchange China. DeepSeek is real. No, but I mean, this is the core of our business now is really helping companies transition from the modern PDLC to an AI enabled PDLC. And as you talk about technology accelerating, my goodness, the AI community, the amount of money being spent. I mean, if you just think about it from that perspective, it's very reminiscent of the 90s. With the internet, like there's so much money being spent, so many things happening. It was really hard to keep up. And I would say, and I agree with you, I feel like the pace this time is that times 10 or 100. So it really is, it is daunting. And so one of the things that we help our clients with is we give them a framework for navigating change, because it is overwhelming. If you try to do all the things at the same time, or even, I mean, I think there were, was it 370 new AI enabled tools came out last month. Wow. I can't even test 370 tools, much less make recommendations to my clients based on that. And so the framework that we've created is much more like agile, where there's values and principles. We know what good looks like. How do you support teams through the transition? What are some different structures and framings? We have the set of principles that we can come back to in retrospectives. So you're doing the change thoughtfully. I reject all the super hype statements like everything has changed. No, everything has not changed. The fundamentals of how great products get built are still sound, but the tooling and the way that our rituals, those are changing. They're being affected by these tools. And so how can we do that in a way that's thoughtful and that supports the people to create better products today and tomorrow, and also identifies people who don't want to change and maybe they're not going to be a good fit for the organization that you're aspiring to become? I mean, that's okay. If you can have that honest conversation, that is okay. And it's really valuable to move those people out early and get the right people on the bus to get to where you want to go. But it is really challenging at the moment. I mean, it is overwhelming. I am totally focused on AI tooling in PDLC. which is a very narrow space. And we're not even talking about AI in products, right? I'm just talking about in how we build product. And it's dizzying the pace. And so helping CTOs in particular focus. How do I focus? How do I manage my board? How do I manage my peer leaders? And then how do I sell this to my frontline staff so that they go on this journey with me as we transition? And we don't lose our eyes. We don't lose focus on the prize, which is to create better products for our customers and delight them. So it's a very tricky thing to do, but we feel really good. I mean, the nice thing is we've been through transitions like this. Agile transformation was like this, right? It wasn't totally clear what to do. Teams were modifying, as they went to adapt to their circumstances. You had a lot of friction around, well, that doesn't work for us, and here's why. And it's like, it probably does work for you. You're just not thinking about it as hard as you could. So we went through the DevOps revolution, went through the cloud. So modern product development has seen these big transitions. This one just is just on steroids. I mean, trillions of dollars being spent. That is insane. And obviously that is going to create this pace. And so I fully, I'm sympathetic to anyone who's like, I'm just going to wait until the dust settles because I can't keep up with this. But I'm finding more and more leaders and companies don't have that option, right? Because like you said, you can't just sit this one out. You have to participate. And these tools are super powerful, but we're learning that, if you use, just like anybody with any tool, you can use it poorly or you can use it really well. And so how do you help the organization discover the ways that these tools can serve them in a structured format? So that's actually what we're doing right now, because it is overwhelming. So we literally talk about taking leaders from overwhelm to leading and thinking about the change management piece. Like, how do we support the humans along the way? A lot of humans are afraid of AI. It's going to take my job. It's going to make, coding irrelevant. It's going to make my knowledge irrelevant. And it's like, no, actually, we're finding that we need your expertise to govern these tools, because on their own, they don't create great software. They create okay software. They're really good at certain syntax things, but syntax was never why I had senior engineers, right? I had them for their judgment. I had them for their foresight on how to craft a product that can be maintained for the long term. Right? The AI tool is going to produce code that meets the requirement. That's it. They're not thinking about the future because you didn't tell it to think about the future. You know what I mean? So really getting organizations to adopt these tools in a way that's really supportive of the people and produces business results. That I think is key.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of sentiments around the changes in the technology. It's always good to hear from somebody who is in it and also supporting other organizations to navigate through those changes. So I think that's great. I was thinking maybe there could be a different topic for to talk about is the AI and technology and its impact on the work culture, because you correctly said there's a little bit of fear among people, not a little, I think there's a fear among people on they might lose their job and how it's actually going to impact the organization itself. And as you're mentioning, that even the CTO level need to understand that how they are, taking this and maybe then also coordinating among different stakeholders they have to as at the level of a CTO. Great, Scott. And I think I couldn't thank you enough for all that you have shared with us. We are already over time with this, and I'm still getting a lot of comments and questions from our audience. To our audience, I would say that Scott, I would share the link of this conversation with you. There are a lot of unanswered questions. If you have some time, if you can answer those questions online, that would be awesome. Through the LinkedIn comment, that would be great. So I'll share the link with you. But before we say goodbye to each other, is there anything that you wanted to share to our audience on work culture, on fail fast, learn faster, or anything on technology that you wanted to say?
I mean, I think I definitely find, and I know I'm not necessarily typical in this, but I find building things with other people to be truly rewarding work. There's a lot of personal pride in building products that other people want to use, that they find valuable. I think there's a lot of honor and in that. And so I think sometimes we approach work as a zero-sum game, and you know, my gain and your loss. Like, in order for me to gain, I need you to lose, you know, kind of thing. And if you can widen your aperture to beyond the walls of the building and think about why this group of people is assembled, there's a real sense of purpose and service that can be really, really rewarding. So. For me, that's I love building products. I love technology, but I'm much more interested in doing it with people that I respect, admire, who are growing, who are advancing. That's really rewarding for me. And I think if others can see that humanity and that sort of value, it changes the way you approach work, and also makes it just far more rewarding. So
awesome.
That would be
to many of my customers who need to understand that the business leaders need to be people driven is a great example. Maybe I should forward this episode to them and say, hey, this is one of the one of the technology leader who understand that it's not only HR to do this, but if a technology leader like believes in people and working with people and driving things, I think that's gonna make a lot of change. So really, really appreciate Scott on behalf of Incredible Workplace and all the audience that were live today, or those who will be watching it in the recorded version, both on LinkedIn and YouTube. I would like to thank you and really, really appreciate you being here. Thank you very much.
It's great to see you, Govind. Great conversation. Thank you.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Scott with us. As I said, that I worked with him in past, and such a great are and a lot of insights that I think that normally comes from true leaders. And again, to all the business leaders who are joining this conversation, to definitely listen to it and gain something from this conversation. With that said, I'm going to sign off, and we'll see you next week on Thursday, same time, with another global leaders coming on this platform and sharing their experiences with us. Till then, thank you very much and have a nice day.